Are you tired of overpaying for your gold, silver, and platinum bullion coins and bars? Then visit sdbullion.com today. SD Bullion was recently named the 177th fastest growing company in the United States by Inc. magazine. This is because they offer the absolute lowest prices in the industry and follow up with over-the-top customer service. So what are you waiting for? Go to sdbullion.com today and join more than 60,000 happy investors that save money on every precious metals purchase they make.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's October 23rd, 2017. You probably haven't been paying much attention to the NAFTA negotiations, but some amazing things have been happening there. I think you're going to be quite surprised when you hear about them. Hey, in the meantime, any questions, comments, please email us at kl@kerrylutz.com or tweet us at Kerry Lutz. And, well, Michael Stumo is with us now. You find him at prosperousamerica.org. Michael, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kerry. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, so NAFTA, it's almost looking like the U.S. might just withdraw from what turned out to be a very onerous and questionable benefit to the country. What are your thoughts?
Well, we're seeing the U.S. trade representative, trade ambassador Bob Lighthizer, who comes from a white shoe Washington law firm but knows trade really well. He's being extremely aggressive in this recent 4th round of NAFTA, putting forth 5 very sensible proposals to help NAFTA get better if it was accepted, but they're very controversial. It's causing the multinational crony capitalists to go nuts. The free traders in Congress are going nuts. He's stiff-arming all of them and pushing forward with it, and the other agencies consisting of globalists in the administration. So I've never seen a trade we've just never seen this movie before, where the U.S. trade representative has used to be just a pawn or a tool of the multinational offshoring lobby. But this one is different. It's very refreshing.
Hey, so him combined with Wilbur Ross, too. You can't underestimate Wilbur Ross's involvement in this process either.
Well, no, you can't. But this actually is the trade negotiations are led by the U.S. Trade Representative's office. You do have some involvement by the Department of Commerce, Department of State, and the Department of Treasury. And in the past, they used to kind of come to a consensus for these proposals. And we know with Steve Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury, and Rex Tillerson's staff at State, they tend to be more globalist. But Lighthizer is pushing, he is not doing consensus. The trade ambassador Lighthizer is pushing very strong America First proposals. He is overruling the other agencies and telling them if they have a problem with it, talk to him first and then talk to the president. So even within the conflict of globalists versus nationalists in the administration, Lighthizer is being very aggressive, and I'm sure Wilbur Ross is not, an obstacle here.
So now we hear that the Canadians are real upset. The Chamber of Commerce, those wonderful people, Donahue, have basically teamed up with our adversaries here, Mexico and Canada. Were you surprised by that?
No, the U.S. Chamber has always been more representative of foreign interests in creating jobs in foreign countries rather than here. It's some call them the U.S. Chamber of Crony Capitalists, but it's really the import lobby or the offshoring lobby, and it's perfectly. They're more aligned with the Canadians and the Mexicans in that they want to. When they talk about protecting global supply chains, what they're meaning is it's a nice word for saying protecting unlimited imports. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're doing.
Ah, okay. Well, I kind of agree with that. And look, the Canadians want to protect their dairy industry. They've got all sorts of industries they want to protect. the Mexican government is intent on bringing in Chinese parts for whatever they're manufacturing there and kind of repackaging them or assembling them. And then they become a backdoor for China to get around various trade issues. So we've got this local content rule, which is just blowing their minds.
Right, and if you hear in the news this thing, you hear something called rules of origin, and you want to change the channel, but that's what it is. In that, what is the minimum content from the U.S. and Mexico in a good or a product? What's the minimum content necessary to get preferential tariff treatment? And it's not very high right now, which means you can bring in a lot of stuff from China, put it into modest assembly in Mexico, and get it into the U.S. tariff-free. So it's a backdoor, as you say, for China transshipping and getting the benefit of a NAFTA agreement without conceding anything, without even sitting down at the negotiating table. So they're a free rider by doing this. It's hurting American workers and our economy.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's something, like you say, your eyes kind of glaze over about it. Doesn't sound very important, but it really is important, isn't it? It's another way to offshore jobs unless they tighten it up and not only directly get rid of jobs, but for the jobs that are left, their wages are a lot less. So it's really hard on the American worker. Oh, yeah. So what do you think we can look forward to here? Is this they're going to stick to their guns, or they're going to cave the last minute? What's going to happen?
Well, there's a few proposals here. There's this rule of origin. There's something on government procurement, which we used to say Mexico and Canada goods can be considered USA made for purposes of our government buying, under Buy American rules, because we have some rules saying we have to buy USA made for the government procurement. There's a big controversy with NAFTA sunsetting, where Lighthizer, the U.S. trade rep, wants to make NAFTA a 5-year renewable agreement where it would automatically go away unless renewed. That is really freaking out the crony capitalists. And there's a couple others. And so Mexico and the business, the big business community has rejected all of them. I don't know if Lighthizer wants to compromise. There's a lot of compromise here. The other side isn't budging. And so I didn't think NAFTA had a huge chance of going away 2 months ago, but it might now, and that might not be so bad. But we just don't know enough yet.
So what's the world going to look like if NAFTA goes away?
Well, on one hand, it could be a big nothing burger because tariffs are low anyway. So if NAFTA goes away, tariffs going back and forth from the U.S. to Mexico would rise by, anywhere from 2.5% to 8% on average, which isn't a big deal because currency fluctuations are that much in a day or a week to change pricing. On the other hand, there's this certainty thing where NAFTA created a lot of certainty for businesses to invest in otherwise risky Mexico and feel comfortable doing it. If NAFTA is every 5 years and optional, or it goes away, Mexico becomes another quasi-failed state ruled by drug lords and corruption without this sort of guaranteed permanent protection of accessing the U.S. market. So the lack of certainty may make it less attractive to invest in Mexico and would then make the U.S., which has a lot of legal and economic certainty, look like a better place to be long term. So I think it would be good for the U.S., and frankly, Mexico needs to develop its own economy and not just rely on U.S. multinationals. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, so what happens with China? They're not going to be too happy about this, are they?
I'm not entirely sure what happens with China. I mean, we do have some transshipping through Mexico. The bigger risk for China is something called a 301 investigation, which the USTR is doing, which is a big investigation broad-based on China's intellectual property theft and forced technology transfer from the U.S. to China, which means that if you are a company in the U.S. that wants to invest in China, they make you transfer your technology as a condition of setting up shop there. And that should be the thing the Chinese should be worried about the most, because A, it's the trade representative doing it who's the most muscular on the issue, and B, the American trade law called Section 301 would provide a very broad, provides authority for a very broad and effective range of sanctions against China. So I think that's a bigger risk for China, a bigger benefit for us than NAFTA.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you think that NAFTA is a precursor or a sign of things to come with that Section 301 investigation?
I think NAFTA, Section 301 is something, us trade walks, it's more like trade enforcement, which is enforcing the rules that already exist. NAFTA is more discretionary. It's like a trade agreement. I think NAFTA is more a forerunner if it goes away and Trump remains popular with it. I think it's more of a forerunner to a challenge to the World Trade Organization and maybe the Korea Free Trade Agreement. I think those three go together.
Right. Interesting. So basically Trump's really kind of exceeding your expectations yet again, isn't he?
Well, he's doing a pretty good job with Lighthizer. I wish we could get a new Treasury Secretary and a new Director of the National Economic Council, because they're problems.
They're globalists.
But they're globalists, from government sacks, we call them.
Yeah,
right?
Well, we know them. Sure. We know all
which
about them.
Which doesn't matter if it's Republican. Yeah. Clinton, Bush, and Obama had those folks. Mm-hmm. I'm happier now than I was 2 months ago, and they're already saber rattling versus the WTO in refusing to allow the reappointment of some South Korean judges to the WTO trade tribunals, because those judges have been going off the rails in how they rule. They've been making rulings on obligations that were not contained in the original WTO charter. They're making up law that nobody ever signed on to. And so that's kind of the first foray of the administration into trying to rein in the WTO. And now we've got some other trade cases called Section 201, in which there's been pretty big tariffs put on foreign solar panel manufacturers, and probably will be on foreign washing machine manufacturers, Samsung and LG. And those will be challenged at the WTO. Our trade laws will be challenged at the WTO as to whether U.S. law is compliant with the WTO. That will be in about a year. That will be a big showdown where the Trump administration will probably, if they lose, if the WTO says that our domestic trade laws are unlawful, that will be a big sovereignty clash as to whether we want to stay in the WTO or not, I think. So look for that in a year.
Interesting. So that's what we got to look forward to. Hey, Michael, best place to find you is prosperousamerica.org.
That's right. And listeners, I hope you sign up to receive our information, to keep up to date, and to know when it's time to act, and let your congressman know to make America great through strong trade policy.
Hey, well, it's about time. Hey, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Go to the site, sign up for our newsletter, email us at kl@kerrylutz.com with any questions, Twitter feeds at Kerry Lutz, and the Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Hey, Michael, thanks so much for being with us again. And hey, let's see what happens. It's definitely getting interesting, like everything else about the Trump administration.
Thank you. Great to be here.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.